Hey everybody, we're back. It's Jeff. If you watched any of the last video, basically in early December of 2021, I came into Mexico. I've been coming here for, 12 years. Every time you show up with a passport, I've been given 180 days to be in the country. This time I was given 31 because I couldn't provide exit tickets or supporting documentation of my itinerary. This seems to be happening to more and more people, and initially, I had some frustrated attempts at dealing with that, but ultimately what worked was I left the country and came back in and applied for a new tourist card. And because I had supporting documentations and made it through the interview, I was given 175 days to be in the country. So what I'm hoping with this video is if you find yourself in the same position that you're already here with few days on your tourist card, you could try this if you need to, or if you're watching this ahead of coming to Mexico, maybe get some tips for how you could avoid this whole mess to begin with. Okay, so what I ultimately found from the different immigration offices, at least currently, is that in Mexico, they won't give you any more days on your tourist card. Now, is that the law? No. Does it say that on government websites? No, it actually says the opposite. But in practice, it seems as if that's just the way things go. 2 years ago, I actually tried to do the same thing in Oaxaca, was given the same answer. So I would assume that really your only recourse is to leave the country and come back in, get a new tourist card, and hopefully get more days, okay? So this first brings the question of how are you going to leave the country? There's several ways. You could leave on land. So there's borders at numerous points on the US-Mexico border. I'm trying to think here. There's Tijuana, there's Mexicali, there's Reynosa. I forget the name of the city in Tamaulipas that borders the United States. On the southern end, you've got Belize and you've got Guatemala, and there's different borders, I believe, at those different sites. So you could leave by land at any of those borders. Likewise, you could leave on an airplane, leave the country on an airplane, come back into the country on land or in an airplane, and likewise, all of that will trigger the surrender of your initial tourist card and getting the new one. So in a separate video, I'm going to talk about my specific process of going to Tijuana, leaving into San Diego, coming back into Tijuana, and how I got my full tourist card that way. But for now, let's just talk general considerations. So where to cross, a lot of that is going to depend on your budget, right? The easiest thing, especially if you're in Mexico City, would be to, take a plane back to the United States, go do something, or take a plane to Central America, go do something, come back to the country a few days later, and there you go. You can apply for a new tourist card. Now, that's going to be quite a bit more expensive. Land borders are cheaper. So ultimately, my decision to go to Tijuana was because I found some extremely cheap tickets to get from Mexico City to Tijuana, where I then crossed on foot and then crossed back on foot. So let's talk some different options. You can fly out of Mexico City to a border area. For example, flying from Mexico City to Tijuana is much cheaper than flying from Mexico City to San Diego, right? It's just a few more miles, but maybe $100, $200 difference in price. I was able to find just a ridiculously low-cost ticket on an airline called Volaris, which often offers kind of like holiday specials. It was right before Christmas. So anyway, that ended up being cheaper. Now, you could also fly to Cancun and then cross over into Belize. That's a pretty quick trip, Cancun to the Belize border in a bus. There's also an app, there's a website called BlaBlaCar, BLABLACAR. People post trips they're making, and you can basically sign up to a carpool and just pay in cash. So right now I just looked up that somebody's leaving in car from Mexico City and driving down to San Cristobal de las Casas, which is right next to the Guatemala border, and that's a $30 trip, 600 pesos. Now, at the time I didn't know about BlaBlaCar. Also, it's probably going to be a 15-hour trip, and then you've got to show up somewhere at night, and then you've got to figure out where to stay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, think about your logistics. If you're going to a place like Tijuana, which is a little sketchy. I tried to make sure that I was going to get there early enough in the day that I would have ample time to go do my border crossing and then still get back over the border and, find a place to stay while there was still daylight. You don't want to be caught in a lot of border areas after dark. You don't know what you're doing, you don't know where you're at, and a lot of times those are some of the, a little rougher areas, border towns. So those are some logistics to keep in mind. Now, this time, after doing a lot of kind of research about what other people have used to get into the country, I had a lot of supporting documentation. Now, if you remember from the first video, when I first showed up to Mexico this time, I didn't have any exit tickets, I didn't have any itinerary, nothing. What I brought this time was exit tickets. I brought a letter of invitation from my friend that I'm staying with. I'll include a template of that, in the description of the video. But basically, all of that includes, it's a formal letter that, has the date, their name, their government ID number, their profession, your passport number, everybody's birthday, and then the specific dates of your stay. So mine corresponded to, the next day after I was leaving the border, all the way till when I had my exit ticket purchased. And if you look online, there's actually a lot of options to purchase what's called an onward ticket, which is you're just purchasing the flight reservation, which is a totally legit way to, demonstrate an exit, but it's a lot cheaper. So look up onward tickets if the idea of having to, purchase an exit ticket seems expensive. Also, obviously, you can buy an exit ticket and then reschedule it for a later date. So those are some ways to deal with that. In addition to the exit ticket and the invitation letter, I had Xeroxed copies of my driver's license that matched up to the address that I had included on the invitation letter, as well as Xeroxed copies of my friend's INE, the INE, which is your voter card in Mexico. It's kind of one of the forms of official ID, and all of the information on that voter card corresponded to what was on my invitation letter, so it's important that all of that matches up well. I brought bank statements. I'm not wealthy, but it can help possibly if they show you, if you can show them that you have enough money to support yourself. Let's see, what else did I bring? I brought, proof of where I was going to be staying in Tijuana, and what ultimately really helped me was proof that I had a flight from Tijuana back to Mexico City the following day after I was, interviewing there at the border. If you can bring proof that you have a lease agreement in the United States, that you have a job waiting for you, that you have property. I don't have any of that stuff at the moment, but anything you can demonstrate to show that, hey, I'm not here to stay. I'm here for my tourist visa, and then I'm going back home, and here's how you can tell. Let me see. I had a little list of a few more supporting documents. Let's see. Possibly if you have a U.S. insurance policy. Also, if you have just any lodging receipts or anything, any tours you've booked or something like that, all of that to show them, what you're doing. It seems like they're really cracking down on the kind of open-ended, show up and figure it out kind of traveling, which is too bad because that's a really fun way to travel. So whatever you can do to kind of, demonstrate what you're up to, maybe pretend to be a bit more type A than you are, will be to your benefit. Okay, so those are the supporting documents. Now, when you show up, the difficulty is that none of these supporting documents are officially required. Okay, all you're supposed to need is a passport, and then tell them that you want 180 days stay for tourist purposes, and they can give you up to that. But right now they want you to demonstrate it. So in addition to the documents, for the first time I had to sit down and kind of do an interview. Now, I showed up at the Tijuana border. I was the only American crossing in. It was the 24th of December, Christmas Eve. So not a lot of people going from San Diego into Tijuana that day. So maybe they just had extra time on their hands, but he sat me down and kind of grilled me about my story. He initially just wanted to turn me back into San Diego and have me fly from San Diego back to Mexico City, but I was able to demonstrate, hey, I have a flight tomorrow from Tijuana back to Mexico City. Well, when are you leaving? Well, here's my exit ticket. Well, what day is the flight out? He wants to kind of see that you have your story straight. So I made sure to have memorized, when I was leaving, what day, how many days that was from my, entrance into the country. I had, a flight booked for 170 days in the future, which is within the 180, but, almost the full allowance. Well, where are you going to stay? Well, okay, so I show him the invitation letter. Well, who's this? Well, this is my friend. And, well, what's she do? Well, it says here in the letter that, this is her profession, right? So a lot of questions where they're kind of playing dumb and kind of trying to make sure that you had your story straight. Now, here's a little detail that I can't quite figure out. And I don't know, I feel a little bit rude suggesting this, but one thing I found, and I found it in this interview, is initially he started speaking to me in English. I've been speaking Spanish for quite some time, and my Spanish is good. And so I just switched to Spanish because I've always tried to do that. It's just a sign of respect. We're in your country, I'll speak your language, right? What I found was that he became a lot more rude to me in Spanish. Started grilling me a lot harder and asked me a lot of questions that, had my Spanish not been at a good level, would have tripped me up, and he would have been able to justify giving me no entry into the country or very few days. For example, I showed him my invitation letter, and he said, okay, entonces ahí vives. Ahí vives, right? Which, if you don't speak Spanish very well, you're going to say, is that where I live? Well, sure, that's where I'm going to live while I'm there. Well, he could have used that to say, oh, so you live there, so you're not a tourist. Oh, okay, so, you're not here for tourism. Get out, right? But I was able to catch that and be like, no. Ahí no vivo. Ahí voy a hospedar. Like, I'm going to stay there. I'm going to be staying there, but I don't live there, right? So if your Spanish is not great, or even if it is, I would honestly go back and do that whole interview in English. Here's the shitty thing. One thing I've found about non-native speakers of English, and I could say the same thing about me being a non-native speaker of Spanish, is that you become more ingratiating when you're speaking in your second language. If you're speaking with a native speaker, you have some doubts, you want to perform well for the native speaker, and so oftentimes you're a bit more lenient, a bit more, yeah, sure. And I saw that in his demeanor. As soon as he's speaking his native language that he's accustomed, and he's able to speak it fluidly with me, he got a lot more strict. So, take that for what it is, but I would definitely consider, unless you're prepared to really be able to, keep a tight line on what you have going on and what your story is, try to see if you could do it in English. Let's see. So, again, get your story straight. Have all the details in order. Don't be, well, I'm going to do this. Well, actually, I'm going to do this. Have a line. This is when I'm coming into the country. This is when I'm leaving. This is who I'm staying with. This is all the information about them. Yeah, I have money, to pay for my food while I'm here. You'll see in that invitation letter template, it also says that, I'll be responsible for all my own, food, travel, everything, but I'm staying with that person. So anyway, get your story straight. Okay, so I think that advice about what documents to bring and how to present yourself in a possible interview situation applies to any border you're crossing, whether you're coming in by air and going to the aduana in the airport, whether you're crossing, from Belize into Mexico, Guatemala into Mexico, any border. Be ready with all of that. I would say that, that would help you. Ultimately, that's what got me 175 days in the country, is that I was able to demonstrate my whole thing and get through that process. Now, this was a big hassle. I flew from Mexico City to Tijuana, crossed into San Diego, walked around, came back the other side, had to stay in Tijuana overnight, come back to Mexico City the next day. Fucking hassle, okay? Which begs the question, is all of that worth it? Well, for me, I'm trying to do quite a bit while I'm in Mexico this time. So, yes. And also, I don't know this for sure, but it seems as if they're becoming more strict about immigration generally, that it's likely you're going to see more immigration checkpoints where they're asking for documents. Now, in 12 years of coming to Mexico, I've been asked for my documents twice, and both were flukes. One was in a bus terminal where a supervisor was trying to flex in front of some of his female employees, like, hey, gringo, let's see your papers. And I had them, and everything was fine. The second time, I was in a public park, and 6 police officers came up to me while I'm exercising, and, hey, where's your papers? I'm like, tell me, like, I'm working out. Like, I don't have my passport on me. So we talked about it. I was not glib with them, but I just explained the situation, and I didn't even have to demonstrate my tourist card, my passport, nothing. They just walked away after they checked my, yoga mat for drugs. So up to this point, it has not been a very hairy situation. However, I'm going to be traveling in areas that are specifically routes of migration from Central America and Haiti toward the United States through the southern portion of Mexico. I don't want to risk this. I'm going to be on a lot of different roads, going through a lot of different situations, and the thing is, if you leave the country with an expired visa and they find it at the border or at the airline exit, you just pay a small fee, no harm, no foul. If they catch you with an expired visa in the country, that's when they could detain you. They could initiate a deportation process. I haven't heard very many stories of this happening to people, but I love Mexico. I would feel terrible if I couldn't come back for a year, 5 years, 10 years. So I wanted to make sure my documents were in line. So if you are staying in one place, let's say you're going to, I don't know, Cancun or Los Cabos or Mexico City or, some kind of more touristy area. Let's say you wanted to stay 45 days, they gave you 30 days. Would I recommend cutting your whole trip short or doing a border run? Probably not. The likelihood of you getting stopped for your documents is small, and the penalty for leaving with an expired visa is, again, very small. If you're trying to stay for many months past what your visa allows, or you're going to be going through areas where potentially there will be more revision of documents, yeah, in my case, yeah, it seemed worth it. Again, finding an affordable way to do that, I was able to do it because holiday pricing for flights was very low, and I managed to find some places, to stay overnight that were also inexpensive. So it worked out for me that way. But again, if you're going to be in one area, and you're going to be leaving, on a plane or something where you're not going to be kind of traversing big areas or exposed on highways, I wouldn't sweat it. I really wouldn't sweat it. Again, I need more experiences from people. It's important that people post their experiences of this whole process so that we can get more information. The frustrating piece of all of this is that Mexico is not providing a lot of guidance about what they expect, what they need. Multiple government websites are inconsistent in their information. So we need more people talking about this. So if you have an experience of this, please post, and we can figure out what to do. But if you have any questions about what you need, like I say, I'm going to include a template for the invitation letter and also a list of possible documents you could bring. I'll indicate which ones are absolutely necessary to have and which ones could help you if you have them available. But anyhow, good luck to you. Let me know if you have any questions, and enjoy Mexico.